The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "To you who hear, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. To the person who strikes you on the cheek, offer the other one as well. And from the person who takes your cloak, do not withhold even your tunic. Give to everyone who asks of you, and from the one who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. For if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. If you lend money to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners and get back the same amount. But rather, love your enemies and do good to them, and lend expecting nothing back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Stop judging, and you will not be judged. Stop condemning, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and gifts will be given to you. A good measure, packed together, shaken down, and overflowing, will be poured into your lap. For the measure with which you measure will in return be measured out to you." The Gospel of the Lord.
It's an old story about the 19th century German politician Otto von Bismarck. One night, he was in bed tossing and turning the whole night. His wife noticed, and the following morning she asked him what was wrong, and he said, "I couldn't sleep last night. I hated all night." And so, hate. It's easy to get upset with somebody that hurts us personally, or hurts our family, hurts our nation, insults us, insults our faith. But Jesus here in the Sermon on the Plain, which is Luke's version of Matthew's Sermon on the Mount, tells us something that is what we could say is counterintuitive, perhaps, to some of our most inmost internal reactions to negative stimuli. Here we see Jesus say, "Love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you." Today in daily Mass, we celebrated the feast day of the chair of St. Peter. You might be wondering why we have a feast day for a chair, but that chair is representative of the office of the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. And I want to tell a story about a pope who any of us over 40 might remember pretty well, and that is Pope St. John Paul II. If many of you might remember where you were on May 13th, 1981, when in front of 20,000 people in St. Peter's Square, an assassin by the name of Mehmet Ali Aja shot at Pope John Paul II 4 times. 2 of those bullets hit the Pope, 1 in the arm and 1 in his torso, narrowly missing his heart. An ambulance was called amidst the chaos, and the first ambulance actually didn't work. However, the second ambulance, which had just been put into service a couple days before, ironically blessed by the Pope, and as he blessed that ambulance that picked him up 2 days before, he said, "And I also bless the first patient that will be carried in this ambulance." It was the Pope. It was touch and go on the way to the hospital in Rome. But when he was in his hospital bed, he said to an eyewitness, "Pray for my brother, whom I have sincerely forgiven." Now, fast forward some 2.5 years later, on December 27th of 1983, the Pope traveled to Rome's Rebibbia prison. There was held his attempted assassin, Mehmet Ali Aja. For 21 minutes, the Pope spoke with Aja, holding his hand at times and telling him that he forgave the man that tried to take his life. A camera was there, and if you Google those images, you can see both the sincerity in the Pope's face and that of his attempted assassin. Ali Aja later converted to Christianity in the year 2007. The Pope John Paul II, forgave the man who tried to take his very life, who tried to cripple him and kill him with a bullet. And the Pope later thanked Our Lady of Fatima, for her intercession on his behalf. In fact, that very bullet that was lodged in his chest became part of the crown of a statue of Our Lady of Fatima. But this is one of the hardest things to do as a Christian, is to forgive those who have hurt us in some way. Many of us, I think, carry deep wounds with us from past hurts, from insults, from those we love, from family members who have some way betrayed us, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, parents who perhaps abused us as children, others who have hurt us in some way, priests who have committed awful sins, as we know, against those entrusted to them, to their care, their pastoral care. And yet, we are nevertheless called to do the difficult work of not giving that hurt power over our lives. We're called to emulate the Lord as Pope John Paul II did, and to forgive those who don't necessarily deserve our forgiveness, but we forgive because we're forgiving in imitation of the one who calls us to forgive, Jesus Christ himself. If you recall, as we approach the Lenten season, just merely a week and a half away from Ash Wednesday, and when the Lord was calling out from the cross, what did he say? He said, to God, he's praying, he said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." To forgive is to be divine, to share in that divine life of Christ, to listen to his words and to live out the gospel faithfully. It's easy to accept mercy and forgiveness. And we have that beautiful sacrament of reconciliation. Once again, during the Lenten season, we have penance services where multiple priests come and dozens of confessions are heard, and people become reconciled with God. They receive that beautiful gift of God's mercy when the priest raises his hand and absolves them of their sins in the name of Christ through the Holy Spirit. It's easy to receive mercy, but do we give mercy to others who have hurt us, harmed us in some way? This is not to say we're called to be best friends with those who have hurt us. We're not necessarily called to invite toxic people into our lives, no. But we are called to hand that pain and suffering over to God, to unite it to the cross, and to live out the words that Jesus tells us. These are not mere idle words and some musings of a philosopher like a Plato or an Aristotle. No, this is a clarion call on how to live our life as a Christian and to work at it. A lot of these precepts of Jesus require the hard work of prayer and dedicating ourselves to study and to read Holy Scripture, to live out what's professed from the pulpit at Mass, to forgive those who hurt us, to turn the other cheek and to give mercy. You know, one of my favorite movies is the 2000 epic Gladiator. And I remember going a little lowbrow here, I know, but it did win the Academy Award. That's okay. So, you know, it stars Russell Crowe as the gladiator Maximus. And in this great penultimate battle in the movie, he fights the undefeated champion Tigris. And he has him on the ground at the end. And then what they did in the gladiatorial games was it was usually up to the crowd whether the gladiator would dispatch his opponent or not. And the emperor looks at Maximus and gives him the thumbs down. But what does Maximus do? Does he kill the gladiator he just defeated? By rights he could in ancient Rome. No, he did not. He threw down his weapons of war, the tools he fought with, and the people chanted, "Maximus the Merciful," right? He showed mercy to somebody who didn't necessarily earn it or deserve it. And we're called to do the same thing. We are called to be ambassadors of Christ and to give the very mercy which we receive from God. We're called to forgive, because when we forgive others who have hurt us, we truly become like the one who we receive at this very Mass, Jesus Christ himself.